This is what real healing feels like. It's quiet, not dramatic. And maybe that's why it can be so easy to miss. Because when you've lived in pressure for a long time, you start to expect change to feel intense. You imagine a breakthrough, as something loud, a sudden shift, a moment where everything finally clicks. But most of the time, healing doesn't arrive like that. It slips in gently, almost unnoticed. Like the moment you realize you breathed a little deeper today, without trying, or the way your shoulders dropped for a few seconds while you were doing something ordinary, or how a thought that used to spiral just passed through. If you've been feeling overwhelmed, mentally tired, or quietly on edge, there's a good chance part of you is waiting for proof that things are getting better. Something obvious, something undeniable, but healing rarely performs for us. It happens in small, steady adjustments, often beneath the surface. And if you've been carrying a lot, you might not even recognize it at first. You might still feel tired, still uncertain, still a little guarded. That doesn't mean nothing is changing. It often means your nervous system is slowly learning that it doesn't have to stay braced all the time. You may have noticed moments where you're not scanning as much, not rehearsing conversations in your head as intensely, not holding yourself to impossible standards every second. Maybe you still feel pressure, but it doesn't feel as absolute. That softening, that subtle shift, is not weakness. It's recalibration. When you've lived in environments that reward speed, constant productivity, or emotional self-control, your system adapts. It learns to stay alert, to anticipate, to push through. Over time, that state can start to feel normal, even when it's exhausting. So when healing begins, it can feel unfamiliar, sometimes even uncomfortable, because slowing down doesn't always feel peaceful right away. It can feel strange, like you're not doing enough, like you're missing something. That's not a sign you're going backwards. It's often a sign that your system is no longer running purely on urgency. Real healing isn't about becoming a different person. It's about releasing the tension of constantly trying to be. You might notice that your reactions aren't as sharp, that you recover from difficult moments a little faster, that you're slightly more patient with yourself when things don't go perfectly. These are quiet signals, easy to overlook, but they matter. Because healing doesn't erase your history. It changes your relationship to it. You may still have days where everything feels heavy, where old worries resurface, where motivation dips. That doesn't cancel progress. It simply means you're human. There's a common belief that healing should feel like steady upward movement, that once you start feeling better, you shouldn't struggle anymore. But real healing is more like learning to move with your experience instead of fighting it. Some days are lighter, some days require more gentleness, and that flexibility, that permission, is part of the process. If you've been blaming yourself for feeling stuck or for needing rest, it might help to consider a different perspective. Your mind and body are not trying to sabotage you. They are trying to protect you. Procrastination, avoidance, emotional numbness. These are often ways your system reduces overload when it senses too much demand. Not failures, not character flaws, just signals. And when pressure begins to ease, even slightly, you may find that clarity starts to return on its own. Not because you forced it, but because there's finally space. You might notice that decisions feel less overwhelming, that you're able to focus for a little longer, that you feel moments of curiosity again, even if they're brief. These are signs of capacity expanding, quietly, without fanfare. Healing also brings a subtle shift in how you talk to yourself. The inner voice softens. It becomes less critical, more understanding. You begin to recognize that you don't have to earn rest, that you don't have to justify every pause, that your worth isn't measured by constant output. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start relating to yourself with respect instead of pressure. There's a steadiness that grows over time, not dramatic confidence. More like a quiet knowing that you can handle what comes, even if it's uncomfortable. You may still feel uncertainty about the future. That's natural, but the urgency softens. There's less of a sense that everything has to be solved. Right now, and in that space, something important happens. You begin to trust your own pace. Healing often feels like fewer internal battles, less negotiating with yourself, less tension between what you think you should be doing and what you actually need. It can feel like allowing yourself to be where you are without immediately trying to fix it. There's relief in that, even if it's subtle, even if it comes in brief moments. Sometimes healing feels like realizing you don't have to carry every thought to its conclusion, that you can let things be unfinished, that not every feeling requires analysis. There's freedom in that simplicity. If you listen closely, you might notice that your system already knows how to move toward balance when it's not under constant pressure. You don't have to force it. You don't have to rush it. Progress doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like gentleness. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like allowing yourself to exist without constant evaluation. And if you're in a season where things feel slower, quieter, or less intense, that may not be a lack of progress. It may be exactly what your system has been asking for. Real healing rarely announces itself. It doesn't demand attention. It shows up in small permissions, in the absence of constant tension, in moments where you realize you're not holding your breath anymore. You don't need to measure it. You don't need to prove it. If you're here, listening, reflecting, noticing something within you is already moving toward steadiness. And it's okay if that movement is quiet. It's okay if it's gradual. You are allowed to take up space at your own rhythm. Nothing about this has to be dramatic to be real. You can simply let this moment be what it is, and trust that even in stillness, something gentle is unfolding.